You know, folks, I'm a person of two worlds. I have 7 computers, 2 iPhones, lots of lenses, 7 digital SLRs, including a pair of D810s, and yet here I am holding an iPad in one hand and using a 150-year-old slate chalkboard. I'm a person lost between worlds. Someone pointed out to me a series of posts where I was recently attacking that heinously incorrect video by a person that is very sensitive and decided to come over and threaten me with legal action. That person will remain unnamed because obviously they're slightly sensitive underneath the skin. By the way, I never trusted somebody that always talked nice and sweet on the surface. You always wondered what was underneath. But anyway, people were posting something over on a site. Let's just call it diaperandpeereview.com. This is the biggest lot of crotch crickets and pixel peeping, lens sniffing schmucks you'll ever run across. I mean, these people will talk about ISO numbers and talk about lenses all day long, and some of those keyboard jockeys have got thousands of posts. Amazingly enough, and not surprisingly, the worst person in the thread, let's just call him Leonard Nimoy, who has many endless thousands of posts, and his gear list shows that he doesn't really have anything at all, was saying some of the most heinous stuff, but actually most of the people were agreeing that were sensible and had the common sense enough to agree that there's absolutely no such thing as a perceptual megapixel. It's merely a scoring mechanism of the heinous site DxOMark. But I wanted to resolve some things that are actually said over there. Some things are said innocently and some not, but I don't care whether someone thinks my voice is irritating or not. I mean, hell, even I think my voice is irritating. Let's go down the list of some of the stuff that was said. It's said that a larger sensor has a larger area and therefore gathers more light for the same f-stop, so you therefore get a higher signal-to-noise ratio with a larger sensor, and that's completely untrue. A larger full-frame sensor does not gather more light, not per square millimeter, rather gathers in total a greater field of view and more total light. The higher signal-to-noise ratio on a full-frame sensor comes about due to the larger photosites, not the fact that it's a full-frame sensor. There are 2 aspects of signal-to-noise ratio in all digital cameras that are captured at the sensor due to natural sensor gain, and the firmware and the time compression gain, which improves the SNR gain in both FX and especially DX cameras, which have a worse SNR gain. Due to smaller pixel sites, they have less gain. It's just like the old ham radio analogy of a rubber ducky antenna having far less gain than a Yagi antenna or a satellite antenna. But radio astronomers were able to figure out, as I told you in a prior video, how to use compression algorithms, which is exactly what Nikon and Canon does. Use compression algorithms to alleviate a lot of that SNR noise issue that's present due to the smaller pixel sites and the higher pixel density on the DX sensors. So there's a lot more to signal processing than merely the sensor and that which is written to the card. And there's certainly a whole lot more between the sensor and where the buffer is writing to the card. It was said by someone else that a larger sensor has a larger area and therefore gathers more light for the same f-stop. And this harkens back to the prior statement, but a larger full-frame sensor doesn't gather more light because it is larger, rather that the photosites are in fact larger and have a higher SNR rate. Larger sensors do not gather more light per square millimeter, rather a larger angle of interception. Same over here. Here we have a lens. Here we have its rear element shooting out light. Here we have our DX sensor. Here we have our full frame or FX sensor. Light density remains the same, okay, per square millimeter. The only thing that changes is the angle of interception on our FX sensor versus our DX sensor, okay? That's all that changes. The light neither knows nor gives a damn what is underneath it. Everything else is due to photosite size, ultimately the AD converter and the SNR firmware algorithms, which reduce a lot of the noise out of the worst gain. It's not that a DX sensor has worse gain than a full frame or FX sensor, it's that the photosites, the actual pixel density is much higher and they therefore resultantly have less gain. Now you could have, for example, a full frame sensor and a DX sensor having the exact same SNR rate, but no one would want a camera designed like that. The DX sensor would have to have much larger pixel or photosites, which means that instead of a 24 megapixel DX sensor, you'd have a 12 megapixel or a 10 megapixel DX sensor, which, you know, the public wouldn't buy. Now, while this DX sensor would have just incredible gain, incredible SNR, the issue would be that ultimately its resolving power in both crop and enlargement would be, of course, not so good. But with current technology, we are able to cram an enormous amount of pixels or photosites onto a DX sensor versus a full frame sensor. However, that's all changed. Canon and Nikon are changing that whole game next year. This has been in the works now for 2 years. Light density does not change per square millimeter between full frame or DX sensors. Lenses crap out the same light out of the rear element regardless of the landing zone of said projected light. Only thing that changes are 3 things at the level of the sensor. The angle of interception, DX, FX. DX crop sensor, full frame. The angle of interception being more on a full frame sensor, obviously and logically so. The pixel density, the size of the photosite. I can actually stick, obviously, but no one does that for obvious reasons, as I just told you. You could stick huge photosites found on a full frame sensor on a DX sensor, but your problem is you'd have less room to pack them in on there. So you got better gain, larger photosites in the full frame sensor, so you have better SNR. You have a larger sensor, which in total gathers more light, but a full frame sensor does not gather more light. It has a larger angle of interception for more overall light. Per square millimeter, a full frame sensor is not gathering more light density than a DX sensor is. Okay? 1,000 receptors on the head of a pen, for example, the footprint of that in the head of a pen, for example, of course this isn't exactly the head of a pen, are gathering greater per square millimeter of detail than the same 1,000 receptors on, say, something the size of a postage stamp footprint. What do you think is going to happen if I'm shooting a bird at 1,000 yards with a $15,000 lens and the bird is right here and I don't want all this crap over here? What do you think is going to happen on these large photosites if I go to crop this out versus crop this out on the DX sensor? That's right. Better gain on the FX sensor. But so what? I've got more information on the DX sensor. Pixel density! Why does everybody keep forgetting about pixel density? The gain of the larger receptors is obviously much better on the larger footprint, but their ultimate resolving detail is much lower than the same 1,000 small receptors on the head of a pen, analogously. Okay? 1,000 here and 1,000 here. What's the ultimate resolving gain in a crop? Well, yeah, that's right. And while those 1,000 small receptors have worse signal-to-noise ratio, because they're smaller photosites, the time compressional algorithms designed by Canon and Sony and Nikon and other people has corrected for this to the greater extent. Much of it has been corrected. The same way radio astronomy has stopped building ginormous, multi-million-dollar, huge freaking huge freaking radio receiving dishes, and they've gone to much smaller dishes which cost less, and they've included a larger number of them over an array, which they can use firmware to actually extract the same image. Firmware in this case, Canon and Nikon, and you better listen close to this part if you don't listen to anything else. Canon and Nikon are going to DX pixel sensor density full frame sensors next year for a reason. Canon's already introduced it. It's nothing other than a full frame sensor with DX pixel density. Why? Because the lack of gain, or the SNR noise issues, which used to be a big issue, has almost been totally resolved. You can't resolve all of it out with firmware and SNR compression algorithms, but most of it has. And so now we're going to have full frame sensors with DX pixel density. You can blow the damn thing up so large you can freaking see you can see the hair growing out of a hair, or you can see the subdermal abrasion from when the child was 2 years old and they got a scar. It's amazing what you can actually blow the damn thing up to. Of course, there's issues with that. You're going to need a faster computer. It's going to have so much freaking detail in it. The files are huge. The SanDisk cards are enormous. They're 500 gig or plus cards. And right now they're very expensive, but just like early cell phones, the price on that's going to come down. So it's the only thing that changes, and I have to make a second part of this video. So this is video number 1. The only thing that changes is the angle of interception between a full frame or FX sensor and a DX or crop sensor. You really shouldn't call it a crop sensor. I mean, it's think, well, it's cropped. It's not. It's the angle of interception. It's a smaller sensor with much higher pixel density. But all that's going to change next year. Now we're going to have a full frame sensor with the same density as the DX, i.e. crop sensor. You're going to have a whole new breed of cameras. That doesn't mean FX and DX cameras are going to vanish anytime soon. What's likely going to happen is current FX sensors with the larger photo sites are going to become the new DX. I'm almost assured that within the next 3 or 4 years that DX sensors are going to be, they're perfectly fine for everything. Nothing's going to change in 3 or 4 years as far as printing out a 20 by 30. But the current full frame sensors are going to be the next level of DX cameras, basically. Everything, and of course all companies are like this. It's all innovate or die, come out with new crap to sell more crap, and to have other companies make new crap to support our crap, and have new accessories to support our new crap, and that requires faster computers to process our new crap, and we need different gear to support our crap, and you're going to have new software to support our crap. All companies are like this. You either innovate or you die. So you can't blame Nikon or Canon for that, because Apple's guilty of it. They're all guilty of it. I'm going to roll on to part 2 on this, and I'm going to point out some other errors mentioned by some of the crotch crickets over on Diaper and Pee Review. But these are common mistakes. Some of them, they're really simple mistakes. This is no big deal. A lot of people think that, but of course they're not true. Saying that a larger sensor gathers more light. Well, no, it's not gathering more light. The same light density here is the same light density here. It's not gathering more light per square millimeter. Overall, it has a larger angle of interception. Yes, but, the sensor is not a freaking funnel. It's not funneling everything down into one here, It's like, well, it's gathering more light ultimately overall, which means something's going to be better down. No. Each little part of that sensor is gathering the same light density. These sensors are not funnels. Each particular spot of the sensor is, but the overall sensor itself, you can't say, well, it's a larger sensor, therefore it's gathering more light, therefore it's better. Yes, ultimately you have to enlarge the image more from a full frame, from a crop sensor than you would a full frame to make an 8x10 print, for example. But that's not to say that the full frame has more light gathering capability per square millimeter. It has better SNR rate due to pixel size, photosite size, but that has nothing to do with the full frame sensor itself either. Check out part 2 coming up.